most of you probably want to hear the UFO news because you, like I, love our UFO news correspondent, Jason McClellan, who's here every week to talk news with us. And people, you're lucky because he's here again today. So, hello, Jason. Give us some news, baby.
Greetings, Alejandro, and hello, everybody. I am happy to give you more UFO news. This is your Open Minds news brief for Monday, October 17th, 2011. Well, a man photographed a UFO somewhere beyond the sea. It was actually over the sea, but
at least when I sing, I don't sing during the show. I should, though. Maybe we should make the show a musical.
You used to sing a lot during the show. You haven't lately.
Oh, man.
And you used to do a lot of phone dialing music as well.
We're going to have to do
I miss the phone dialing music.
Oh, that's right, phone dialing music.
But back to the story. A man photographed a UFO over the sea while on vacation near St. Austell, Cornwall, in England. On October 1st, 2011, the man was taking a leisurely stroll when he decided to snap a photo of the picturesque seascape. The photographer didn't notice anything unusual at the time, but when he returned home and uploaded his vacation photos from his camera to his computer, he noticed the UFO over the sea. The object in the photo was blurry, and this makes sense because the object not seen by the photographer when he was taking a picture would most likely have been moving very quickly for him not to notice it. But at initial glance, the UFO appears to be disc or saucer shaped. According to the Daily Mail, this UFO photograph was unveiled at the Cornwall UFO Research Group conference. In describing the photograph, the group's founder, Dave Gillum, pointed out that there appear to be two trails of water beneath the object, which look as though they are falling from it to the sea. He offered the possible explanation. It could be that the object had just emerged from the sea. The Daily Mail reports that a spokesman from the nearby Royal Navy Air Base confirmed that no military aircraft were in the area at the time. But the Metro points out there could be a much simpler explanation: a seagull. And when you look at the photo again, you can totally make out the seagull. And apparently some have suggested that this UFO is a seagull in flight, and those two trails beneath the bird are nothing more than doo-doo.
And they're white.
They are white, and anybody familiar with seagulls or other birds is familiar with the white.
Otherwise, it could be like a spaceship dropping like Space Invaders. You know those little wine bomb things that they dropped on you because they're little white lines.
You can see the similarity too. If you look at the picture, you could see that.
There's some
little
music.
White lines. There you go.
Space Invaders. But it's a seagull.
It's a seagull. When you first look at the picture, you say, "Wow, there's a flying saucer." It sort of looks like a saucer, but
for the untrained eye,
when you look at it, you can see the shape of the chest and
Yeah, definitely. And then you look at other seagull pictures. It's definitely a seagull. And it happens a lot with birds. And unfortunately, of course, when you're taking pictures, you don't notice things flying around, birds and bugs and stuff like that. So often people will, they get their pictures back. And what's that? And then, typically they're often, not always there, but often they're birds and bugs and stuff.
Those dive-bombing seagulls are up to no good.
Yeah, so the media had a lot of fun with the whole seagull poo UFO thing.
Yeah, there were a lot of headlines with poo in it.
Yeah. That's always fun.
That's disgusting.
It's fun, though.
I guess. Well, it was just 2 weeks ago that we reported that a major change was made to the Roswell International UFO Museum and Research Center's website. But now it appears that the museum has scrapped their plans for their biggest change of all, which would have been a new building. Groundbreaking took place 2 years ago on what would have been a new $25 million home for the museum near the heart of downtown Roswell. But according to KOB Eyewitness News 4, on Tuesday, October 11th, officials from the museum announced that the project has been scrapped, and the $2 million lot where the building was going to be constructed will now be sold. The museum will reportedly stay at its current location after securing, quote, not only a long-term lease, but an option to buy the property. And that's according to museum representative Jack Swickard. Plans are being developed to renovate the museum's existing building, and negotiations are reportedly underway to perhaps purchase neighboring buildings and somehow incorporate them into the overall museum. According to KOB Eyewitness News 4, an economic study shows that the museum brings in an estimated $57 million into the state's economy and attracts around 150,000 visitors each year. Absolutely. I mean, the Roswell incident is Roswell's economy.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of glad in a way because, of course, it would have been exciting for them to build this fancy new facility.
And it was pretty fancy.
But I've been watching this, and it's been years, and the money just isn't there. So I'm really excited about this because where they are is kind of fun. And I mean, it needs, I think, internally, it can have some, stand some renovation. But, it's in this old theater, and plus the front, the marquee and everything is so famous by now.
Right.
And it's a trademark. It's great to have them where they are. And now what was neat about this year in Roswell is they had acquired, only just before the conference, which was really helpful, at least one or two of the storefronts that were nearby in the same building they're in. So they were able to have more speakers and some talks in these other rooms. So like the Kimbler stuff, the Roswell stuff we talked about, where we had the pictures of Don Schmidt and Stanton Friedman and Kevin Randall and Tom Carey all together, those were in this other room. So it was a great room, and she talked about how she might have the opportunity to buy more of those. And if she could buy this whole building, which is this whole block in Roswell, that would be awesome, because then they can, focus that money will go a lot further into renovation as opposed to building a real fancy, huge place.
Well, don't speak too soon, because the article, I believe, mentioned that part of their plan is if they can acquire all of these other spaces next to them, then they can move forward with building their gigantic, super nice museum like they had planned, the original design.
Well, I hope they do that in the
same
building.
place. They would tear it down and build stuff, which I think would be a shame. But yeah, their current location looks awesome. I've never been there, but you certainly have.
Yeah, and if they can expand in there, because it's always fun to have, kind of a front that is, because it's, maybe they get bored with it. It looks like Old Town, a small town, Old Town, and the marquee of the big UFO. So it's neat looking, and that's a big draw for people like us that are urbanites and stuff, because it looks neat. And then when you go inside, and you can have this really cool experience. And there's a lot of museums like that. Heard Museum from the outside, for example, doesn't look that great, which is a famous Native American museum here. But when you go inside, it's really laid out very nice and looks great.
I think the exterior appearance of the Roswell Museum is perfectly fitting.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Roswell.
I think your mic went out.
My mic went out.
There you are.
Go. The Roswell incident, you're talking 1947.
Mm-hmm.
That to me doesn't say fancy, modern
right, exactly,
museum.
because then it looks more like 1947.
Right.
You feel like you're more in the times of what happened, which is the whole point, because you walk in there, and you've got all of this stuff from that age,
right?
And it feels like you're there, and you get the sense of what it was like to be there in 1947.
It makes sense, and hopefully this is all working out for the best, and they take advantage of it now that they can get a long-term lease and perhaps buy the building.
Yep.
That's excellent. Alejandro, I'm going to talk to you about something that I've been wanting to talk to you about.
Great.
And we've mentioned this the past 2 weeks on the show, but Live Science published an infographic a couple weeks ago on their website showing the top 10 states for UFO sightings. The National UFO Reporting Center's data was used to create the infographic, and the data represents sightings from 1994 through 2011. Well, you, Alejandro, compared that data with the UFO sightings reports from MUFON, and you published your results complete with charts on our website, openminds.tv, and Huffington Post, and you put this together in a really visual presentation, but you've got 3 different charts here showing hotspots. And you broke it down, explaining it, and I'd like you to explain it, because we have the UFO hotspots per report, and we have the top 3 being California, Texas, and Florida. Then you have the UFO hotspots per population, and the top 3 there are North Dakota, Arizona, and Colorado. And then lastly, we have UFO hotspots per Alejandro, and the top 3 there would be Arizona, Colorado, and Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 different top 3s here. So Talk me through this a bit.
All right. I'm glad you asked because I know you're someone who reads articles, but not everybody does. Some people just look at the pictures. And if you're one of the picture lookers, all you got was what Jason just described. So you probably were so confused that you looked at the pictures, you thought they were neat and moved on, which is great because picture lookers, unfortunately, probably aren't that into details anyways because they never get them just by looking at the pictures and not reading the text. But there's a lot of them out there. So for the picture lookers, or for those of you who like to listen to the radio show and don't go to the website, but you better go to the website. I'll explain this. Yeah, what I did is what I decided to do since they did their infographic was kind of do my own, but with MUFON's data. So the first graph, I wanted to find out, well, is it similar to what they got on the Life Science with the New Fork material? And it was very similar. In fact, I put those two together, and the only differences were, for instance, Illinois is a little bit lower on the MUFON list and up on the New Fork, but it's still very close. It's number 11. It's not in the top 10, but it's very close to the top 10 for MUFON. There are little changes like that. He is in Oregon.
Right.
Steve Davenport. So
in Washington.
Oh, I think you're right. Washington. So Washington, for instance, is about 14th on MUFON, but it's second on his list.
Right.
And I think that's probably because more people in Washington know about him. He gets a lot of press out there.
You're right.
Because he lives in a silo. So, he gets a lot of press about living in a silo and running a UFO thing. So people report to him probably more than MUFON. Whereas Colorado, which is where MUFON is, and they get more press there, more people report to MUFON. So just some of those differences. Otherwise, it was very similar. Then I pinpointed it more to 2011 to see what was happening there. Really, it's about the same when you look at reports overall, what states are getting UFOs. And it stays the same. However, when you look at this, you see a lot of the states with the highest populations in the top of the list. So because they have more people, it seems they have more sightings. Right. So what I wanted to do was break it down to, well, how many places are getting more sightings per person? Because that might really indicate where the hot spots are. And that was the second graph, so per person. So, for instance, North Dakota, they only have 670,000 or so people. And so they were getting 3.4 sightings per 100,000 person, which is the highest. However, we learn in stats class that if you don't have a sample size of 30 or more, then you should probably throw it out. And because they only have 23 reports as opposed to a California with like 300 plus reports, that data is probably not as accurate as to whether or not they may be a hotspot or not. Because, of course, one sighting can throw that off.
Right.
So huge.
And is very, very cool seeing you do this with the population, taking that into consideration, because you did bring up states that weren't recognized before, like North Dakota and Alaska. Wasn't Alaska number 4 on that one?
Yeah.
And that's crazy. But go ahead with your next one.
And Alaska only had 17. Wyoming had 13. They came to the top because they don't have much of a population. So if they take, for instance, if Wyoming would have had 2 less, they would have dropped a lot further. So I took all those that had 30 or less out to figure out, okay, what are most likely the hot spots? And what rose to the top was Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, Indiana, Missouri, Kentucky, Nevada, Kansas, Michigan, and Connecticut, which is pretty interesting. I think a couple of the interesting things are, I think you can really pinpoint these states more likely as a hot spot because this is per population. And these are places that have a fair amount of reports. And I found this before when I looked at this data a couple years ago, that it was very similar to this. So very interesting. Of course, I've been in Arizona and Colorado. We talked about that, I think, last week, so that was kind of funny. But it was also kind of funny because I received a message from my buddy, Chuck Zukowski, who's been on the show before. And his sister is the state director for MUFON in Missouri, and he was looking at information she had and he had, and he saw that there's a lot of sightings between Colorado and Missouri, and he saw that also some cattle mutilation reports that he's investigated in Colorado were all along the 37-degree line, latitude line. So, and my map kind of correlated with what he saw. So that was kind of interesting too. But I think here you can really have the hot spots for what it's worth. interesting enough, though, California and New York, some of the places, of course, with the highest populations that were towards the top, really drop down when you go per population. The hard part is that California is so big.
Right.
I think New York, we really don't have as many sightings per person, so it's not maybe a hot spot. California, if we could regionalize California by South California, North California, or maybe Mid-California, we may find some part of California as a hot spot, but unfortunately we can't do that. So California and even Texas drop off. But yeah, it's really interesting that right in the heart of the country we have something. Now, the other problem is there are so few reports that for every UFO sighting that someone actually goes and finds MUFON or NUFORC, which isn't, if you go to the website and put in UFO sighting, you may be able to find something. But someone has to be pretty, they have to have a reason to do that. And a lot of people see something and they tell their buddies, maybe they even go to the media first before they would try to go look for a reporting center. So most sightings probably don't go reported to MUFON or NUFORC,
right,
or even the media. So that kind of throws a hitch in all of the data too. So are these really more UFOs in Arizona and Colorado and Kansas and Missouri and Kentucky and Indiana than there are in the rest of the country? It's hard to say, but at least there seems to be a trend of more reports per person in those areas.
Well, I enjoyed looking at your charts, and I did read your articles
Pretty colors
about it. But thank you so much for putting that together. I know that was a lot of work. You spent a long time on that.
It's important.
Yeah.
I mean, MUFON, there's a lot of people out there, and they're getting data and getting information, and, they've got the great database. Same with NUFORC. It's a lot of hard work to get this information and this data. And this is what it was for, to try to put it together and figure out the trends to see what's going on with these reports.
Well, good job.
Thanks.
In other news, residents in Shanghai, China, were bewildered by a multicolored UFO in the night sky on Monday, October 10th, which was last week. According to a television station, witness stated, "I feel curious about the object. I don't know what it is. It can't move like a plane and can change colors into green and red alternatively." But the UFOs were later identified as large kites equipped with hundreds of colored LED lights. Did you watch the video of this?
Yeah.
They're kind of crazy. I'm glad that this was a news report that showed it at the end, because when you watch it in the sky, it's just kind of amazing to see, because all you see are these LEDs changing color and kind of pulsing downwards. It looks really cool.
It looks super cool.
But on the ground, you see it's just a triangle kite and has this round set of lights in the middle.
Yep.
Looks crazy from the sky.
Yeah, it's really fun. And if you knew how to do, like Chuck, he's got a computer program where he can put lights together and do weird stuff like that.
And a lot of people are doing that. That's becoming pretty normal now. A lot of this night flying using either, remote controlled airplanes, kites, things like that.
Yeah.
But really adorning them with these LED lights that you can program and flying them at night is really becoming popular.
It's fun. Of course, it throws another wrench in our system here when we're trying to look for UFO reports, but that's just what you deal with when technology improves, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in other news, a photographer in Milan, Italy, recently captured multiple mysterious UFOs on camera. According to Mexican journalist and TV personality Jaime Maussan, on Monday, September 19th, Antonio Urzi was taking some test shots with a camera and a telephoto lens when he noticed a strange object in the sky. According to Urzi, the object appeared to be a flying sphere, but with his telephoto lens, he was able to see much more detail. The series of 11 photographs shows a saucer-shaped craft with a sphere-shaped object centered on the bottom of the craft and 3 smaller sphere-shaped objects around the larger sphere. This object strongly resembles a well-known UFO photograph by George Adamski that was taken in 1952. The sequence of photos also shows smaller independent sphere-shaped objects accompanying the larger object. Some of the photos show only one of these spheres moving around the larger craft, while other photos show at least 2 small spheres in the sky at the same time as the larger craft. Urzi claims that after snapping the 11 photos, his camera stopped working, and then the UFO and the spheres disappeared. And the photos were analyzed briefly by somebody who works with Urzi, and he said he couldn't find any sign that the photos had been tampered with or brought into Photoshop or anything. Urzi, if you're familiar with him, he's taken hundreds thousands according to some people, of photos and videos of UFOs in Italy, but also around the globe, and he claims to be followed by UFOs. His photos and videos are highly controversial, as well as the Adamski photos are, if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, it's a tough case. I mean, we've covered it in our magazine because he's got these phenomenal pictures.
Amazing pictures.
These amazing pictures of UFOs flying over his house. Are they really? I've got a video up where I was with him and I took this video of a UFO, but I think it was a balloon over Mexico. So, yeah, it's just so difficult to say with these. And it's, of course, this one is so strange because it looks so much like the classic Adamski UFOs.
And I don't know, I can't recall seeing that anytime.
Not
since.
Recently.
Yeah, it's been.
There were other people other than Adamski who took those pictures, though.
Mm-hmm.
But that was during the time, typically during the time that he was seeing.
And this Adamski-like UFO looks similar to the other crafts that he's photographed in this detail. It just seems to have additional orbs at the bottom of the craft.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. Well, speaking of actual orbs, 2 orb UFOs were recently recorded on video in the sky over Missouri. The Epoch Times provided this description of the video. The brightly glowing objects are traveling low in the evening sky. They fly around each other, appearing to almost collide before descending into the distance and disappearing behind some trees. A husband and wife witnessed the glowing UFOs together, and the wife recorded the incident on her iPhone. The husband then submitted the report of their sighting to MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which included the video. The video has since been uploaded to YouTube, along with the following description from the husband that submitted it with his MUFON sighting. He said, "My wife witnessed 2 glowing orbs in the sky while she was driving down our street. She had an incredible video that she shot from her iPhone through the windshield. The lights spun around each other, then descended to the ground. They went behind some trees and out of view. She is very reluctant to share this experience, so I'm writing this for her." Some have suggested that the mysterious lights in the video could be remote-controlled airplanes, while others have suggested the video is nothing more than a hoax. However, no official identification has been made.
Yeah, really interesting video. Maybe CGI. You know what it reminded me of?
What's that?
And I think it's a video that doesn't get enough attention personally, even though it was the one that we have from Las Vegas that we have on our YouTube.
The one with roller coaster?
Yeah.
Behind the roller coaster?
And this is one I got from Greeley when I did a talk in Greeley, Colorado a couple years ago. And some guys brought this video to me. And they were in Las Vegas, and there's a weird white light flying over the strip where they were over by New York. And then it kind of zooms down and does this weird stuff. And in this video, you have these 2 lights zooming all over the place. If it's real, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But it should be looked at closer because we saw some things that might indicate it to be CG.
Mm-hmm.
But someone needs to take a look at that because it's a very interesting video.
Yeah, it's a great video. I definitely watched it quite a few times today. And you're right, there are a couple indications in there that could be problematic, but, it's difficult to tell. These are balls of light in the sky, and we've seen so many orb videos this year.
And one good thing this one has, where there's been problems in the past with CGI, is when it flies behind trees, you can see it through the leaves once in a while.
Right.
Whereas there are some other videos where that didn't happen, which was a big indication that it was not
and
real.
And being lights in the sky, we'll say this is 100% definitely not Chinese lanterns.
Yeah, not Chinese lanterns.
And this is not flight planes.
No.
And this is not like the Red Bull Air Force, the skydivers with flares on their feet.
You had another idea of possibly RC planes with LEDs. It could possibly be that.
It's possible.
Because they can fly pretty crazy, but even that's would be maybe a little bit of a stretch because they're moving so fast and up in the air and down again.
And again, some of these issues with the lights and where they're moving in front of or behind of, it kind of rules out RC to me. But
yeah,
it's difficult to tell. I mean, we have no idea what it is. It's a fun video to watch, so definitely check it out.
Yeah, CG or possibly a real phenomena.
Pretty exciting. Well, Alejandro, that is it for the news for today. Remember to check out all of these stories and many, many more at openminds.tv, your source for UFO-related news. I'm Jason McClellan, your Open Minds news correspondent, and you have been briefed.